So we do not only have RWNA method, we have another method for only creating a file, and if the file does exist, then it will throw an error. So we can write with open, and we can open the file, one of the files that does exist now, for example sample3.txt, and then we're going to use the method x, which is for creating the file, and then we can see what happens. Actually here, because we are not going to write or read from it, we can use f equals open here and see what happens. See if it creates the sample3.txt or we will face an error. As you can see, it says that file exists and sample3.txt. As you can see, we had created this file, so it will not create another file. But if alternatively I write sample4.txt instead of sample3 and comment this one, we will create a new file. So as you can see, we have sample4.txt, which didn't used to exist, but now it has been created. There are also times that we want to remove or delete a file. So it doesn't matter whether it's a text file or a JSON file or a photo or a folder. We use completely a different function for this one, and notice that for doing that you need to import one of the modules that are built inside Python, and that is OS, which stands for operating system. This module helps you do a lot of stuff, such as removing the files, removing the folders, and so on. So here imagine that because we've created sample4.txt, we want to remove this because we do not need it. So here I can write os.remove, and then I can write the name of the file that does exist inside of that directory. So I can write sample4.txt, and then let's run the code, and let's see if we have sample4.txt. As you can see, we have no sample4.txt, it's only sample3 and nothing more afterwards. So I can also do this for sample3. So here, let me copy and paste and do this for sample3. And because sample4 does not exist, if I remove it one more time, it will face an error. So I'm going to comment it here. As you can see, sample3 has been removed as well. So we can do it for any number of files that we want. If I run this file one more time, it will face an error. Why? Actually, we won't face an error because it hasn't been defined inside of the function that if the file does not exist, it will throw an error. It will look in the directory. If the file exists, it will remove it, or if it does not exist, then it won't face any error. But we can also use the try and except method, a statement for this one. So we can write try, and because we do not have OS error for this one, it is better not to write try. Instead, we can write if. We can check if the file exists or not, and if the file does not exist, it can raise an exception, and we can create an error for that one. Or we can only tell the user that that file does not exist and let the program go on without any error. But if we're writing a module and we want it to raise an exception, then we can create that kind of error. But in Python here for the OS, it seems that there is no such error for removing the files that do not exist. And we can add that just using the error.py tutorials that I've told you about in the last part of our tutorials. And here, as you can see, we had OS error for looking for the files that do not exist. OS errors are related to seeing whether the files exist or not. So here, anyway, let's get back to our to the context that we were talking about. Also notice that on VS Code, because we have removed sample4.txt and sample3.txt, these have a kind of red line on them and they do not exist anymore, as you can see, and so we can just let them go. So in order to check whether a file exists in the directory that you are in, you can write if os.path.exists, and if that is true, you can remove the file. For example, we can do it for the file that we have already removed, and then we can write else and print out the file does not exist. So let's run the code. Here, this program tells us that it will tell us whether the file exists or not, and it can also let us know that, for example, if exist, the file existed and we have removed it for you. So here we face an error, and it says that no such file or directory sample4.txt. So here we should also write sample4.txt for this one as well, and then check it up. Here, as you can see, the file does not exist. So if you write os.path.exist, you should also write the name of the file of that directory as well. So if that directory is somewhere else, you can use the backslashes in order to specify the directory it is in. So for example, here we might have a new folder, and inside of that folder, so let me create a new folder, and I can name it my folder. And inside of it, for example, we have created a new file. So here I can create a new file .txt, and here inside of our code I can write the name of that file. First of all, the name of the folder, so my folder / and we have new file, and then you can save the file, save the code, and let's see what happens there. So the file does not exist because here here I need to also check and change the sample4. Okay, new file.txt, we want to remove that. So let's do it again. So again, it says the file does not exist, and the reason is that we shouldn't write this in another form. So if we want to switch to the my folder and then the new file, it is done in another way. Also, let me check the name of the file. So I think it's about the name of the file. You need to write it exactly the same as that. So it says that no such file or directory. My folder, and here is my folder. So here we shouldn't just write new file.txt. I need to also add the directory of it for removing the file. So as you can see here, the error is related to line 30, and it says that this one does not exist, but this one exists. And the reason is that I haven't specified the folder exactly where new file does exist. So let me rerun the code, and here as you can see the file existed and we have removed it for you. And if you head over to my folder, you will see that no such file does exist, and you will also see new file.txt has a red line on it, which means that it doesn't exist anymore. So I can let it go this way. So also imagine that using this OS module, you want to remove the folder. For that you can use os.rmdir, which is the abbreviation of remove directory. So directory means folder, so you want to remove that folder, and then you can write inside of the quotation marks my folder, which is the name of the folder, and run the code. As you can see, the folder has been removed. Also, because the file that used to exist in my folder doesn't exist anymore, then it says the file does not exist. So that's it. We've learned how to create the files, how to update the file, modify it. There are different ways to do that, and how we can read from the files using different functions and methods. Also, we've learned how to remove the files or folders, and how to switch to the different directories and check the directories, and how to let the user know if the file does exist and if the file has been removed, and so on.